Yo, the enemy's public, I gotta keep my eyes open. Pay attention, stop walking around like you blindfolded. This not the World Cup, but Nasir be kicking knowledge. This is the type of information you can never learn in college. It's time to fight back, it's no more trying to play it cool. We got interviews, podcasts, and got the latest news. So sit back and relax, we about to get it started. Earth is a canvas, and guess who's the con artist? They brainwashing us, the system corrupted. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. I said you are now rocking with the enemy's public. Hey.
Peace. This is the enemy's public. I am Bro.Nasir. This evening I want to speak about the left wing and right wing, the two wings on the same unclean and hateful bird. Now, the Democrats and the Republicans, they both pander to us by going at each other, trying to convince us that each one of them are more evil than the other. Now, Joe Biden did a speech at Howard U's graduation. He did the commencement, and he did a lot of pandering, a lot of lying, and Fox News got upset, and they did a lot of pandering, a lot of lying. It's like when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, they do agree on one thing. They agree when it comes to us. We must remain in the condition that we're in, and we must be classified and reclassified time and time again. Now I'm going to play this video clip, and I'm going to give my narrative and my take on what these obvious racists are talking about and the trick bags that they use against us. Now, again, the left wing and the right wing are two wings of the same unclean and hateful bird.
President Biden promised to be America's uniter-in-chief. We heard him repeat it time and time again during his 2020 campaign and when he first took office. But now the president is once again facing fierce backlash for making divisive comments, sending this message in his commencement address to the graduating class at a historically black school, Howard University, over the weekend.
Stand up against the poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out.
Now, I'll start right there. Here's a outright white supremacist who in the past have called us niggers and who in the past have written laws, the 94 crime bill, that massively incarcerated our people. And the woman who he has as a vice president, damn sure, made sure that that law was implemented, and she gladly incarcerated many of our people. Now, Joe Biden straight up told a carcass full of people who look like us that he was not going to do a damn thing for us and about our condition. He can easily come up here and say what he's saying and do nothing. I call this pandering. Just take a look. Listen.
As the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
Here you go, a white supremacist telling us that the biggest threat to American society in the United States is white supremacists and white supremacy. They letting you know exactly what it is.
And I'm not saying this because I'm in a black HBCU.
This is exactly why he's saying it. He's in a black HBCU. Isn't HBCU is a historical black college or university, a black one? So that's letting us know that the HBCUs are not even our schools. It's just historically black by attendance, but we don't own it.
I say wherever I go.
Most dangerous terrorist threat to the homeland, Harris. That's quite a claim.
You know what? He needs the numbers to back that up. And so we were.
Now you can take this young lady right here and get on the subway anywhere in the United States with her because she's a token.
Looking at this issue today, and you know, one of the problems with this is that he thinks because he is in front of a black audience that he can just say whatever he wants. I don't ever remember him saying with such specificity any of this in front of a white audience, but maybe we missed that day. Maybe it happened in Delaware on one of those mystery weekend getaways. But this is really important because there is domestic terrorism in our country, and you can look at the facts.
And the domestic terrorist and terrorism in the U.S. are white men, women, and children terrorizing the citizens of the United States, whether they're shooting one of us down or they're shooting each other's down. Yet they'll talk about black on black crime when crime is done by proximity. You're going to be a victim of someone around you, 9 times out of 10 of someone who you know. Yet they'll call the crime they commit just crime, but they'll call crimes that we commit on each other black on black crime. Yet this Negro will sit up here and say that there is domestic terrorism, but look how she tiptoed through the tulips of who the domestic terrorist is.
And see where that's coming from. You can also say that two things are true. Things can be a problem without being the number one or the only problem. But right now, our sovereignty is at stake. Right now, people are still fighting high prices of things. Like we're in the midst of history making for all the wrong reasons. The blacks in that audience.
What does sovereignty got to do with the economy? What does one thing have to do with the other? She's dancing around the situation.
Let's care about that. You don't think that we care about the economy?
Of course.
I mean, come on. You don't have to victimize us to reach us. But that's what he does. No one's putting us in chains.
That's a great point. And look, politically, he has to shore up his numbers among black voters, among young people. He was pulling at about 90%, according to the Associated Press, with black voters. Now it's 60%. He has a big problem here.
58.
As if other politicians don't go around and pander to people who they think they can influence. Stop it.
Perhaps he might have to go back to the well and suggest that if you are a person of a certain skin color who doesn't support him, you're not really black. Remember that?
Yes.
From 2020, you brought that up.
We remember that, but that's not for you to say because it doesn't affect you. I'm tired of hearing white people talk about our situations as if they're going to change the dynamic and change the condition of our people. They try to sit and tell us what our problems are when we discuss our problem, determine what the solutions are.
Up in the last hour, Harris, I'd forgotten about that quote briefly. You raised it. I'm like, oh yeah, he did say that. I think that's a window into his mentality. Not necessarily into his heart, but into the way that his political brain works and what he's trying to do.
That's fair.
And speaking of pandering, let me just throw this right back to you. When he said, I'm not saying this because I'm here, I'm saying this everywhere I go.
Where?
Yeah, is that Is that not a pander to that specific audience?
I think it sits next to it on like the digital Websters, maybe. Like that is exactly a pander. And when he says, I'm not just saying that to blacks at an HBCU, I'm just thinking, does he not know the B in HBCU stands for black? Like, why are you saying it twice? Like, you're really double selling this. You're really trying to put this out there. And by the way, there are a lot of people who teach at HBCUs. Who knows who was in that audience?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. In my own household, there are people who look like you.
Yes, married to a Caucasian man. That's why people in her household look like him.
So I'm just wondering, and I'm pointing to Guy in case you didn't see that.
Good looking household.
Yeah, well, I think but my point with this is that if you wouldn't say it to everybody, why are you only saying it to a certain audience?
Yeah,
Why?
it makes no sense. And Emily, there is this small matter that he promised us unity. Take a listen.
Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. To restore the soul and secure the future of America requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. With unity, we can do great things. I know, speaking of unity, can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. For without unity,
Exactly, a foolish fantasy when we are in a relationship and the relationship is an abusive relationship. That's a relationship we don't need to be in. And we also don't need to be in a master-slave relationship. I was always taught that a relationship, either a ship sink or it sail. A relationship with these people, our relationship will sink, not sail. Now, the Republicans and the Democrats, I don't know why our people are foolish enough to think that we can distinguish the two. A Republican would tell you and show you that they hate you in your face, straight up, chest out, overtly. But a Democrat will act like they're your friend, but stab you in your back. That's the difference between them. But the left wing and right wing is on the same unclean and hateful bird flying in the same damn direction.
there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. Unity, not division.
People.
Emily.
Yeah, I think his commitment to unity lasted the end of that sentence because we've seen nothing but divisiveness and exactly the kind of.
There's divisiveness on both sides. They are bipartisan when it comes to us. They behave in public like they don't like each other. But when it comes to us, they're all in agreement. We must remain in the condition that we're in. Period.
Stoking and incendiary rhetoric coming from him this entire time. I thought that speech was fantastically degrading. It is so degrading to paint a portrait based on an assumption of the.
It is degrading to paint a portrait that is not true, a portrait that is falsehood. We must get out of this system. There's no uniting with people who don't want us. We can't be like that loyal dog who is loyal to its owner. It don't feed it. It throws a shoe at it. It pays no attention to it. It don't walk it or nothing. But when you call it, it runs to you, wagging its tail. We can't be like that.
The box checked by everyone sitting there and their families, and essentially that there is apparently zero drop of anything else impacting those families, that the most important thing facing them is this enemy. And that will somehow define their trajectory, define their existence by the existence of something else. I know when I graduated college in my commencement speech, I was looking for inspiration. I would think for my president, I would be looking for policy. I would want to know exactly how my community could be lifted up, how that tide rises to lift up all boats, the kind of things where when I walk out of there, I feel more educated, more inspired, more equipped for my divine assignment. Instead, after that, I would feel victimized. I would feel afraid. I would feel judgmental and critical of my neighbor based on a box they checked. This commander-in-chief is anything but a unifier, and that speech was appalling.
Well, Lisa told me during the commercial break she was really feeling unity in Joe Biden's America.
I was saying it as a joke, as we all know. he's the most divisive president, in American history. But the point is to pit neighbor against neighbor, people like.
Stop it. The most divisive president in American history. I don't make no attempt to distinguish one from the other. They try to push the unity amongst their own, yet they act like they want to have unity with others. They undermine every effort we attempt in our face. They bring other people to this nation and provide for them while our people suffer and the citizens of the United States suffer. Now, they bring the Ukrainians and other people, whoever they bring over here, but I'm going to name the Ukrainians by name. Put them up in hotels, give them a stipend of money, give them a way to provide for themselves, yet the citizens of this country are not provided for. Those people are war-ridden in Ukraine. So are the people in the United States of America. We are war-ridden, and so are the people, the other citizens in this nation. Nobody on this planet should be provided for by the United States before the citizens in this nation are provided for.
Against the other. That is the point of this. Like every Marxist before him, you have to have someone to blame. You have to intentionally divide society. He did this during COVID with the unvaccinated like me, trying to say, hey, don't spend Christmas with your unvaccinated family member. They're dangerous. They're unclean. He did this heading into the midterm elections with Ultra MAGA, standing with the military flanked behind him, labeling 75 million Americans as enemies of the state. And now he's just doing it with white people. And the sad part is, and the irony of it, is that Joe Biden has probably made some of the most racist statements of any president in American history, whether it was palling around.
Stop. The president who just left the office almost 4 years ago made equally as racist remarks as Joe Biden. Equally. And he actually advocated violence at his rallies of some of our people. Stop.
With segregationists, whether it was saying that Obama was the first Black American who's bright, articulate, and clean, whether it was saying he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle, whether it was saying that you have to have an Indian accent to go into or work at a 7-Eleven or go into a 7-Eleven, whichever it was. Offensive. So so he has actually made blatantly racist statements, but then he has the audacity to sit there and intentionally divide Americans because guess what? Rome is burning and the country is.
What she's saying is true, but you can't act as if the presidents before Biden wasn't equally as racist, because you take George W. Bush, he didn't give a damn about our people. Even Barack Hussein Osama didn't give a damn about our people. So much happened on his watch to our people. We know Donald Trump don't give a damn about our people. Bill Clinton and the man who sits in the office right now wrote the 94 crime bill to incarcerate our people. So I can go from George Washington all the way to the man who's sitting in the House right now. I know there was presidents before George Washington who looked like us, but I'm going to start with George Washington and go all the way to the president who sits in that office right now. All of them equally as racist.
It's a mess, and he's trying to prevent a distraction and have a group of people for everyone to blame for their problems.
And by the way, just very quickly, you can absolutely say, and we should, that white supremacy exists. It is a fringe. It is a scourge against
Racism
people.
goes on all sides.
I'm just saying.
I feel like that's also devaluing.
Fair enough,
the fact that racism is
But I'm saying this about white supremacy specifically, Lisa. At the same time, he gave that speech in Washington, D.C., and it is laughable that the biggest threat to anyone in that city is white supremacy right now. And there is a lack of self-awareness on that point as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I would love to have him focus on the terrorism in our nation's schools.
Okay, that's a good focus. Terrorism in the nation's school. Tell little white boys and girls to stop going into the schools and shooting them up. Parents, when you buy a firearm, put trigger locks on your firearms. Trigger locks should be a required accessory when you purchase a firearm. It should be a required accessory that you put trigger locks on your firearms so these little domestic terrorists don't walk up into a school and fire and shoot and kill teachers and students, little babies. Or tell your little ungrateful, wicked ass sons and daughters to stop walking into supermarkets, traveling hundreds of miles just to kill people shopping in a supermarket who haven't done anything to them. Mm-hmm. That's how you could get rid of domestic terrorism. And also, those who are wearing badges and carrying guns, stop them from killing citizens on the streets. Force them to be the heroes that they want people to perceive them as, and stop these so-called law enforcement officers for expecting people to adhere to them and obey them, and stop the tyranny of police officers. That's the way you could stop domestic terrorism. And also, these judges in these courtrooms, take away some of the power that they have. They hold people in contempt because they're standing up for themselves. Now, when you have a judge, just because they don't want a particular person in the courtroom, or a defense attorney would say they don't want the person in the courtroom, they get the judge to swear that person in, so they can't be in the courtroom until they're called for testimony, because that's how it's done. Yet they're never called to testify because that's not what they're there for. They do it just to get the person, the citizen, out of the courtroom, because the defense of a crooked, wicked ass cop don't want this person who is coming in the courtroom to get the information for us. They don't want them in the courtroom. So they do all they could. They exercise wicked power. Or if a prosecutor have evidence on a wicked ass, murderous ass 17-year-old, and a judge hinder the prosecution from presenting the evidence, that is abuse of power. That's not a justice. That's a judge. That's what that is.
That we talk about each and every day.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe.
Now, the left wing and right wing, again, same evil, hateful bird, flying in the same direction. Now, there's no such thing as a gentle rapist. If he's a rapist, he's just as wicked as the one who is handling you in a different manner. No such thing as a gentle rapist. When we see our open and consistent enemy infighting, we need to stop getting involved in that. Roland Martin and others, stop getting involved when we see our open and consistent enemies infighting. When the Republicans and the Democrats are going at each other, we should do what they do. We should arm both sides and let them destroy each other like they do other people. We shouldn't try to come between that and get in between that. Let them destroy each other, because when they're infighting and going at each other, discrediting each other, it's our chance to escape. Why would you come between your captor and your rapist, your oppressor? Why would you do that? That's not what you do when they're fighting. So when I seen them January 6th running up in that building, it didn't affect me. I said, it's their shit, let them tear it up. Capitol building. That Capitol building to me represents one thing when it comes to my people, and that is capital punishment. So it don't mean anything to me, that Capitol building. That is where they write laws to oppress my people. So if they go in there, they tear that building up, so be it. It doesn't matter to me, and it shouldn't matter to any of us. Now, this is an election year coming up next year. And they're going to go around campaigning for our votes. And you're going to have Negroes trying to rally our people to sway one side. You know, the devil or his brother still coming out with the devil, Lucifer or Satan, still coming out with wickedness. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you have to choose the lesser two evils. You're still choosing evil. Tell them to go straight to damn hell when they come to you with that foolishness. And when they send those who they think influence us to come around to us and tell us to vote or die, tell that nigga that we're voting and dying. This is the Enemy's Public. I am Bro.Nasir. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.